Hey, good morning and welcome to DC Today. I'm Del Walters in Washington. We begin with a cautionary note and a name. Sergeant Major Jeffrey Mellinger. The cautionary note goes like this: nations don't go to war. Instead, their sons and daughters do. Joe Biden lost a son to injuries that might have been a result of his duty, so he knows the sacrifice. But what about the others? Right now, there are a record 23 working moms in Congress who have children 18 years or younger. Democrat Katie Porter, for instance, of California, has 3 children, 12, 10, and 7. So when they beat the drums of war in Washington, it is always important to remember that Donald Trump Jr. or Eric Trump or Ivanka won't be heading off to war, even though they are actually old enough and let everyone know how good they are with guns. Instead, it will be your sons, your daughters. Today's military, 44% minority, 14% are women. So you do have a stake what happens next in Ukraine, because if you're watching this network, there's a good chance your sons and daughters got the standby notice from the White House. And now to Sergeant Major Jeffrey Mellinger. Mellinger is believed to have been the last person drafted during the war in Vietnam. He retired in 2011. Sergeant Major Mellinger was the son, no, not of a president or of a senator. His father hung drywall in Eugene, Oregon. And like the 58,000 others who died in that war, his name was part of a lottery, not part of a nation that enjoys the privilege of talking about war without ever having to serve. Which brings us to this. Thousands of U.S. troops are told to be on standby this morning, ready to head off to Eastern Europe. The threat of Russia invading Ukraine could be imminent. Our D.C. correspondent Bofta Iman joins us now with more. Good morning, Bofta.
Good morning, Del. Nearly 130,000 U.S. troops, Russian troops, I should say, are on the border, and the United States, the Biden administration, looking at the same images that we are seeing, the escalation of Russian troops on the border there. And we're seeing these images here as I'm talking right now, this escalation, and it's led Biden to look to other options. The president considering moving thousands of troops, as you mentioned, up to 8,500 U.S. service members, naval ships, warplanes. NATO also sending ships and fighter jets to Eastern Europe. Now, the forces wouldn't be sent to Ukraine, which is not a NATO member, but it would serve as reinforcements to help deter Russian aggression as part of protecting U.S. allies in the region. Now, if Russia decides to invade Ukraine, President Biden has promised sweeping economic sanctions and military support to Ukraine. And while things don't look promising right now, they are still holding out a sliver of hope for diplomacy. Take a listen.
We've also seen Vladimir Putin add to his force capability, not just in the western part of his own country, but in Belarus as well. So he has shown no signs, as I said earlier today, of de-escalating. Quite the contrary. And I think it's something we're all watching with great concern.
And John Kirby, who you just heard from right there, did stress that no decision to deploy has been made. And just for context for our viewers, Del, important to remind them that this didn't start several weeks ago. This really started years ago, about 7-8 years ago, when Russia annexed Crimea. And so, this is something that's been building up. This is something where the Ukraine people are extremely fearful that what will happen if Russia does come in, and because they are not a NATO member, what kind of support, how long will the support last, and what will that look like for the day-to-day lives? Del?
Bofta Iman for us in D.C. Bofta, thank you very much.